Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're diving into a field that's all about numbers, but with some real-world impact. Business economics researcher.
Yeah, it's a really interesting field because it really bridges that gap between, economic theory and the practical application of it. So you're not just crunching numbers, you're actually using them to solve real-world challenges and uncover opportunities.
And we've got a ton of resources from RoleCatcher.com to help guide us through this deep dive. We're talking everything from what a business economics researcher actually does, spoiler alert, it's a lot more than you might think, to the skills you need, the technology that's changing the game, and even those interview questions that we all dread.
Yeah, and it's important to be prepared because this is a field that's definitely experiencing steady growth, but it's also, it's competitive. So you really need to showcase not just your knowledge, but your ability to actually apply it.
So let's start with the basics. What does a business economics researcher actually do? I have to admit, the title sounds a little important, but also a bit vague. What's the elevator pitch for this role?
You're right, it can sound a little opaque, but really it's about being a translator of sorts. You're taking complex economic data and making it understandable and actionable for businesses.
So they're like the interpreters between the world of economics and the world of, well, business.
Exactly. They might be conducting research on market trends, analyzing the impact of new government policies, or forecasting future economic conditions, for example, for a specific industry. And here's the key. It's not just about the big picture of macroeconomics. They also delve into the microeconomics, how individual companies operate within that larger economic landscape.
So it's this blend of research, analysis, and then translating that into strategic advice, like here's what the data says, and here's how your business can use that to its advantage.
Exactly. Think product feasibility studies, forecasting for emerging markets, even analyzing consumer behavior patterns, or the potential impact of tax policies.
Wow, I'm already seeing how this role goes way beyond just crunching numbers. They're advising on product launches and navigating tax policy. That's a lot more hands-on than I
Okay.
pictured.
Absolutely. A good business economics researcher understands that their work has a real impact in the real world. Their insights can influence whether a product launches, how a company invests its resources, and even how governments shape economic policy.
Okay, talk about a career with impact. But clearly, this isn't a job for just anyone. What are some of the essential skills someone would need to really excel as a business economics researcher? Besides, being good at math.
Right. Well, a strong foundation in economics, business, or finance is definitely the starting point. We're talking degrees in economics, business administration, finance, even mathematics and statistics come into play. But you're right, it goes beyond just the technical side of things.
Yeah, this feels like one of those roles where you need a certain kind of mind, not just a certain degree.
Exactly. You need sharp, analytical, and critical thinking skills. It's kind of like being a detective, but for the business world. You're piecing together clues from data to solve these complex puzzles.
I love that analogy. So
Yeah.
you're not just crunching numbers, you're weaving a story.
And that leads us to another crucial skill, communication. You could have the most amazing insights, but if you can't explain them clearly to people who might not be economists themselves, those insights aren't going to have much of an impact.
It's like having all the answers but not being able to explain them to anyone.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the need to stay updated. Economic trends change, new research methods emerge, data analysis tools evolve. It's a field that demands continuous learning.
Speaking of data analysis tools, this is where I think things get really interesting, especially for our tech-savvy listeners.
Hmm.
Because from what I'm seeing, technology is completely changing the game for business economics researchers, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And that's what we'll be getting into next.
And we're back, talking about how technology has changed the game for business economics researchers. It's more than just spreadsheets these days, right?
Yeah, you could say that. Software like Stata, R, and SAS, those are essential now for analyzing huge data sets, building complex models. It's like the standard toolkit. But the really big change is AI and machine learning.
Okay, those are such buzzwords these days, AI and machine learning. But what does that actually look like in economics? What can they do that we couldn't do before?
Well, imagine being able to sift through mountains of data. And I mean, mountains, economic indicators, news, even social media. AI can spot these subtle patterns and all that, patterns that humans might miss.
So it's not just about like predicting the stock market. It's finding these hidden connections between what consumer behavior and the larger economy.
Exactly. It's about processing so much information that it can see those correlations you wouldn't expect, and then it gives you more accurate forecasts, a deeper understanding of how the whole system works.
It's like having a team of research assistants working around the clock, but they run on algorithms and never need sleep.
That's a great way to put it. And what it means is that researchers, they can focus on the interpretation, on strategy, on communicating those insights in a way that, that people can actually use.
It's combining human intelligence with this raw computational power. And speaking of tech, we've got to mention RoleCatcher itself. That's a perfect example of how technology is helping job seekers, including aspiring business economics researchers.
Oh, absolutely. Their AI-powered CV and resume builder, that's huge for anyone trying to stand out. You can tailor your application for each job, highlight the right skills. It's like having a personal career coach in your pocket.
But even with all the tech in the world, you've still got to ace that interview. So what are interviewers really looking for in a business economics researcher? Any curveball questions we should be ready for?
Well, first and foremost, you have to know your stuff. Microeconomics, macroeconomics, those fundamentals have to be solid. But, and this is important, it's not enough to just know it. You got to be able to explain it clearly, even to someone who isn't an economist.
So ditch the jargon, make it make sense to everyone.
Exactly. It's about showing you can communicate those complex ideas to anyone. Now, in terms of specific questions, be ready to talk about your past research, what you studied, how you did it, what you found, but always bring it back to how you applied that knowledge.
Show them what you know, but more importantly, what you can do with it.
You got it. Give concrete examples. And don't be afraid to let your passion show. That genuine interest in economics and how things work, that's what really shines through.
Okay, so we've talked about what a business economics researcher does, the skills you need, the tech that's changing the game. But now let's get to the part I know everyone's thinking about. The career path itself. And of course, the earning potential.
Right, because at the end of the day, we want a career that's both fulfilling and pays the bills.
Exactly. So, good news first. What's the job outlook like for this field?
It's looking pretty positive, actually. We're seeing steady growth projected over the next decade, which tells you that businesses really see the value in this kind of expertise.
That's great to hear, especially for anyone thinking about making a switch into this field. So let's say you're just starting out. What does that entry-level position look like?
Well, a lot of people begin as a junior business economics researcher. It's all about getting that practical experience, doing research, analyzing data, supporting the more senior researchers on projects.
Those early years where you're really learning the ropes and building your skills.
Exactly. And then from there, you can move up to become a business economics researcher, then senior business economics researcher. More responsibility, leading projects, your advice carries more weight within the company.
And I'm seeing here in these RoleCatcher resources, some people even become a principal business economics researcher.
Yeah.
Is that like the top of the mountain in this field? What does that look like?
It's definitely a leadership position. You might be managing a whole team of researchers, advising high-level executives, maybe even influencing policy decisions on a larger scale, really shaping the economic strategy for a company or even a whole industry.
Okay, so now the big question, and maybe it is $1 million question, what's the earning potential like here?
Well, you chose the right field if you're looking for high earning potential. It does vary, of course, depending on your experience, where you're working, what industry, but in general, there's a lot of demand for this expertise.
I imagine those with advanced degrees, certifications, and a good track record. Of course, those are the folks who are really in the top tier salary-wise.
Absolutely. If you're serious about this field, investing in your education, getting those certifications like the CFA, the CBE, those can make a big difference, both in terms of how marketable you are and your earning potential.
So it sounds like a challenging but ultimately very rewarding path for anyone who's fascinated by economics and business and how those intersect with the evolving world of technology.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a dynamic field, always something new to learn, and you can have a real impact on how businesses make decisions.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the bottom of our deep dive today into the world of business economics researchers. We covered a lot: what the job is, the skills you need, how technology is changing things, and of course, the career path itself. If you're intrigued by what you've heard today, and I have a feeling some of you are head over to RoleCatcher.com, dive into those resources yourself. Who knows? Maybe business economics researcher is your next big career move.